Your brain has been chemically hijacked, and it happened with your permission. Dopamine spikes, measured during pornography use, mirror those of cocaine. Except cocaine eventually runs out, and your screen never does. Han Fei wrote about the two handles of reward and punishment that rulers use to control populations. You've handed both handles to an algorithm designed to keep you scrolling. But here's the twist that changes everything. The same mechanism that traps you is the one that frees you. You don't need a new brain. You need to understand the one you have. I know why you're here. You've tried everything. You've installed the blockers, deleted the apps, made the promises, set the alarms, prayed the prayers, read the books. And maybe it worked for a day, a week, maybe even a month. But then something happened. A bad day at work, a rejection, a moment of boredom so profound it felt like drowning. And suddenly you were back. Clicking through pages at 3 a.m, that familiar mixture of relief and disgust washing over you in waves, promising yourself this is the last time, knowing even as you think it, that you're lying. And here's what nobody tells you, what all those articles and 12-step programs and accountability partners somehow miss: you're exhausted. Not just tired, exhausted in your bones, in your soul. Exhausted from fighting yourself. Exhausted from the shame that sits in your chest like a stone. Exhausted from being the only person in the room who knows what you did last night, who carries this secret like a weight, who looks at people and wonders if they can tell, if there's something in your eyes that gives you away. You're here because every piece of advice you've ever received treats this like a discipline problem. Just try harder. Just have more willpower. Just be better. And the implication underneath all of it, the thing nobody says out loud but you hear anyway, is that if you're still struggling, it's because you're weak. It's because you're broken. It's because there's something fundamentally wrong with you that other people don't have. But what if I told you that's not true? What if the entire framework you've been given is wrong from the ground up? 2,300 years ago, in the chaos of ancient China's warring states period, a philosopher named Han Fei watched kingdoms rise and fall. He watched rulers who were good men lose everything. He watched armies that should have won get destroyed. And he asked a question that everyone else was too afraid to ask. What if morality doesn't matter as much as we think it does? What if good intentions are worthless without good systems? Han Fei wasn't interested in making people feel better. He was interested in what actually works. And what he discovered, what he wrote about in texts that would later terrify emperors and change the course of Chinese history, was this: human beings don't change through inspiration. They change through altered circumstances. You can't willpower your way out of a system designed to defeat willpower. You can't discipline your way out of an environment optimized for your failure. And right now, you're living in an environment that's been engineered with billions of dollars and thousands of the smartest engineers on Earth to hijack the exact system in your brain that Han Fei would have called the two handles: reward and punishment. Every click gives you a hit of dopamine. Every moment you resist feels like punishment, like sitting in a room that's slowly filling with water, trying to hold your breath just a little longer. You've been trying to fight a war where the enemy controls the terrain, the weather, the supply lines, and half your own army. And then you blame yourself for losing. So here's what we're going to do. We're not going to talk about willpower. We're not going to talk about shame. We're going to talk about something else entirely. Something Han Fei understood better than almost anyone in history. We're going to talk about sovereignty, about taking back the two handles, about understanding the game so completely that you stop playing it on their terms and start playing it on yours. This isn't going to be easy to hear. Some of it might make you angry. Some of it might sound like I'm letting you off the hook or making excuses. I'm not. What I'm doing is something much more dangerous. I'm telling you the truth. The truth about what you're actually fighting. The truth about why it's been so hard. And the truth about what actually changes things versus what just makes us feel like we're doing something. Because here's what I've learned, what Han Fei knew, what every person who's ever actually overcome this discovers eventually. Your addiction isn't evidence of weakness. It's evidence that you're a human being living in an environment deliberately engineered to exploit your most ancient survival mechanisms. You're not broken. The game is rigged. And once you understand how the game is rigged, once you really see it, you can't unsee it. And that's when everything changes. Let me tell you what's actually happening in your brain when you look at pornography. I don't mean morally or spiritually, I mean mechanically, chemically, in the same way I'd explain what happens when you touch a hot stove. There's a part of your brain called the nucleus accumbens. It's ancient, older than language, older than civilization. Its job is to make sure you survive and reproduce. When you encounter something that promotes survival, food when you're hungry, water when you're thirsty, sexual stimulation, this part of your brain releases dopamine. And dopamine doesn't feel like pleasure exactly. It feels like wanting, like anticipation, like the moment before you get the thing, not the moment you have it. Your brain can't tell the difference between a photograph and a real opportunity to reproduce. It can't distinguish between what's real and what's on a screen. So when you look at pornography, this ancient system floods your brain with the same chemicals it would release if you'd actually encountered a real mating opportunity. Except here's the crucial part. In nature, those opportunities are rare. You might go days, weeks, months between encounters. The system is designed for scarcity. But on your phone, scarcity doesn't exist. There's no limit. You can trigger that dopamine release over and over and over again, hundreds of times in a single session. You can click to a new image every few seconds, getting a fresh hit of anticipation each time. And your brain, your poor ancient brain that evolved on the African savanna, where seeing one potential mate in a month was a big deal, is now seeing thousands in an hour. It's not designed for this. It's like taking an engine built for water and filling it with gasoline. The engine's not broken. It's being asked to do something it was never designed to do. And here's where it gets worse. Over time, your brain adapts. It says, okay, if this is the new normal, if this is the level of stimulation we're working with now, we need to adjust. So it down-regulates your dopamine receptors. It makes you less sensitive to dopamine, which means the same images that used to excite you don't anymore. You need more or more extreme or more novel just to feel the same baseline level of okay. This is the same process that happens with cocaine, with alcohol, with gambling. It's not metaphor. It's not exaggeration. It's the same neurological pathway, the same chemical cascade, the same adaptation. But here's the part that everyone misses, the part that Han Fei would have immediately understood. You didn't do this on purpose. You're not weak. You're not bad. You're a human being with a human brain, and that brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do when placed in this environment. The problem isn't you. The problem is the mismatch between your biology and your environment. Now, Han Fei would look at this situation and ask a very simple question. Who controls the two handles? In his philosophy, every relationship of power comes down to two handles, the handle of reward and the handle of punishment. Whoever holds both handles has complete control. A king controls his ministers because he can reward them with titles and punish them with execution. A parent controls a child because they can give affection or withhold it. And right now, in your relationship with pornography, you've handed both handles over, completely. When you click, you get the reward, that dopamine hit, that moment of escape, that brief feeling of okayness. When you don't click, you get the punishment, boredom, anxiety, that restless, gnawing feeling that most people call craving, but that feels more like drowning on dry land. So pornography holds the reward handle. Do this and feel better. And it holds the punishment handle. Don't do this and feel worse. You've given away your sovereignty. And every method you've tried so far, every accountability app and every promise and every attempt at raw willpower is still playing the same game. It's still accepting that pornography holds the handles. It's just trying to resist better. It's like being in a dictatorship and trying to be a better, more obedient subject. That's not freedom. That's just more sophisticated slavery. So what would Han Fei say to do instead? He would say, you can't take the handles back through force. If you try to just grab them, if you try to just resist harder, you're still playing by the same rules. The dictator is still the dictator. You're just a rebellious subject who occasionally wins a battle. No, what you have to do is build new handles, attached to different rewards, connected to different punishments. You have to create an entirely different system where pornography isn't the thing that holds power over you because there are other things, better things, more real things that give you what you actually need. But to do that, you first have to understand what you actually need. Not what you want, what you need. Because here's the secret that changes everything. You're not addicted to pornography. You're addicted to escape from a life that feels unbearable in small, constant ways. Let me tell you a story. It's a parable that Han Fei might have told, though I'm adapting it for us here. There was once a general who couldn't control his army. Everywhere they went, his soldiers looted villages. They stole food, terrorized civilians, violated every code of military conduct. The general was a good man, an honorable man. He punished the looters. He made speeches about duty and honor. He executed deserters. Nothing worked. The looting continued. Traditional advisors told him to be stricter, more executions, harsher punishments, public humiliations. He tried everything. The army only got worse. Then one day, a traveler came to his camp. This traveler watched the army for 3 days without saying a word. On the 4th day, he spoke to the general. He said, "You've misunderstood the problem. Your soldiers aren't dishonorable, they're starving." The general was confused. He said, "But we have supply lines. We have food stores." The traveler said, "Yes, and your officers eat first. By the time the food reaches your common soldiers, there's barely anything left. Your men aren't looting because they're bad. They're looting because they're hungry. You've been trying to punish away a resource problem." The general investigated. The traveler was right. The officers were taking more than their share. The supply system was corrupt. The soldiers at the bottom were genuinely hungry, and they were stealing food to survive. So the general fixed the supply system. He made sure every soldier was fed properly. He rooted out the corruption. He didn't make a single new rule about looting. He didn't increase punishments. He just made sure his soldiers weren't starving anymore. And the looting stopped. Not immediately, but within weeks. Because once the soldiers had what they actually needed, they no longer had a reason to take what wasn't theirs. Do you see it? Your pornography habit is the looting. But what are you starving for? Now, this is advice for a tyrant, and we're not trying to become tyrants. But the principle applies to your internal kingdom, your mind, your desires, your habits. Right now, you've given the two handles to pornography. It controls reward and punishment in your life. When you're bored, it rewards you with stimulation. When you try to resist, it punishes you with craving. But here's the beautiful, revolutionary thing. You can build new handles. You can create new sources of reward and punishment that have nothing to do with pornography. And once you do, once you have multiple sources of satisfaction and meaning in your life, pornography loses its power. Not because you're resisting harder, but because it's no longer the only option. This is completely different from the advice you usually get. Usually, people tell you to remove pornography from your life and then just exist in the emptiness. Just sit with the discomfort. Just resist. And for some people, in some situations, that works. But for most people, it doesn't. Because nature abhors a vacuum. If you take away pornography without adding something else, the vacuum will refill with pornography. This isn't metaphor, it's physics. So the question becomes, what are you going to add? What are the new handles? And this is where it gets practical, where we move from philosophy to action. But I need you to understand something first. This isn't going to be a list of tips and tricks. This isn't going to be another 10-step program you try for a week and then forget. What I'm about to share with you is a framework, a way of thinking that has to become part of how you see the world. Because here's what nobody tells you. Freedom from pornography isn't an event. It's not something that happens one day where you wake up and you're just magically free. Freedom is a direction. It's a trend line. It's choosing, moment by moment, day by day, to build a life where pornography becomes less and less relevant because you're getting the things you actually need from real sources. Some days you'll fail. Some days you'll click the link. And that's not starting over. That's not proof you're broken. That's just data. That's information about what conditions led to that choice. Information you can use to adjust your environment, your systems, your approach. Han Fei wasn't interested in moral perfection. He was interested in effective government. And effective government, whether of a kingdom or of yourself, isn't about never making mistakes. It's about building systems that make the right choice easier than the wrong choice. So let's talk about systems. The first thing you need to understand is that you cannot trust your future self to make good decisions in the moment of temptation. This isn't an insult, it's reality. In the moment when you're tired, lonely, anxious, bored, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that does rational long-term thinking, is barely online. What's online is the ancient part, the survival part, the part that wants relief right now. Expecting yourself to make good decisions in that state is like expecting a drowning person to calmly analyze their swimming technique. It's not happening. They're just trying to breathe. So the solution isn't to become a better decision maker in that moment. The solution is to make decisions now, when you're calm, when your rational brain is online, that change what options are available to you later when you're not calm. Han Fei would call this environmental control. You're not trying to become a more virtuous person who resists temptation through pure force of will. You're trying to become an architect who designs a space where temptation is harder to access. Let me give you a concrete example. Right now, your phone is probably your primary gateway to pornography. It's in your pocket all day. It's next to your bed at night. It's the first thing you reach for when you're bored or anxious or can't sleep. And on that phone, access to pornography is maybe 3 taps away. 3 seconds from decision to done. You've tried to resist this through willpower, through promising yourself you won't do it, through feeling terrible afterward and swearing never again. And sometimes that works, but most of the time, when 3 in the morning rolls around and you can't sleep and you're anxious about tomorrow and your phone is right there, you tap. Because in that moment, the distance between temptation and action is so small that there's no space for choice. So what if instead of trying to be stronger in that moment, you changed the moment entirely? What if your phone charged in a different room at night? Not as punishment, not as some draconian rule, but as architecture, as design. Now, when 3 in the morning comes and you're anxious and can't sleep, you still have the urge. But to act on it, you have to get out of bed, walk to another room, pick up your phone, walk back. And somewhere in that process, maybe 30 seconds, something changes. There's space between impulse and action. And in that space, choice becomes possible again. You're not trying to eliminate temptation. You're trying to insert friction, to create a pause. And that pause is where your sovereignty lives. This is what Han Fei meant by the power of systems over intentions. It doesn't matter how sincere your intention is to change if your environment is set up for you to fail. A good king doesn't rely on his ministers being virtuous. He creates a system where following the rules is easier than breaking them. So the first practice, the first concrete thing I want you to do is this: audit your environment. Not to judge yourself, not to feel bad about how many opportunities you've created for failure. Just to see, where are the access points? Phone, obviously, but also laptop in your bedroom? Staying up late when you're exhausted? Coming home to an empty apartment with nothing planned? These aren't moral failings. They're architectural problems. And once you see them, you can change them. One at a time. Not all at once. That's overwhelming and doesn't work. But one change this week. Maybe it's the phone charging in the kitchen. Maybe it's buying a dumb alarm clock so you don't need your smartphone next to your bed. Maybe it's planning one specific thing you're going to do tomorrow night at the time when you usually struggle. These feel like small things. They are small things. But Han Fei understood that kingdoms aren't conquered in single grand battles. They're conquered through accumulated small advantages. A better supply line here, a fortified position there. And eventually, the balance of power shifts. The second thing you need to understand is the paradox of control. And this is going to sound contradictory, but stay with me. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. Every time you say, "I will never do this again," every time you make some grand declaration of absolute commitment, you're creating a pressure system inside yourself. You're building tension. And tension must eventually release. It's not a matter of whether, it's a matter of when. Think about it. Have you ever told yourself you absolutely would not eat junk food anymore, starting Monday? And by Tuesday, you'd eaten an entire pizza because Monday's restriction made you obsessed with what you were denying yourself. The prohibition itself created the pressure that led to the binge. This is what Han Fei would recognize as the problem of rigid rule. A king who governs through absolute, unbending law inevitably faces rebellion, because human nature bends and flexes and needs some space to move. Try to lock it down completely and it explodes. So what's the alternative? Instead of never, try not right now. Instead of elimination, try postponement. This sounds like a small change in language, but it changes everything psychologically. When you're in that moment of temptation and you tell yourself never, you're in a binary, yes or no, succeed or fail. And the stakes feel so high that often your brain just goes, forget it, we're going to fail anyway, might as well get it over with. But when you tell yourself, not right now, maybe in 20 minutes, something different happens. The pressure releases a little. You're not denying yourself forever, you're just postponing. And often, after 20 minutes, the urge has passed. You've successfully navigated the moment without either giving in or creating the pressure of absolute prohibition. This is sustainable power. This is the kind of governance that lasts. It's flexible. It's responsive. It acknowledges reality instead of trying to force reality into an ideal that can't hold. And here's the thing. Over time, not right now becomes not very often. And not very often becomes, this isn't really part of my life anymore. Not through force, not through white-knuckled resistance, but through accumulated choices made easier by good design. The goal isn't perfection. Anyone who tells you the goal is perfection is setting you up to fail. The goal is trend direction. Are you watching pornography less this month than last month? Yes? You're winning. That's the metric, not perfect abstinence, not some ideal version of yourself who never struggles, just is the trend line moving in the right direction? Because here's what actually happens to most people. They mess up. They watch pornography after a week of not watching it, and their immediate response is, I've failed. I'm back at square one. I'm worthless. Might as well keep watching now since I've already blown it. This is insane. You haven't failed. You had one setback in a week of progress. If you were learning piano and you hit a wrong note, you wouldn't say, well, guess I'm not a piano player. Might as well quit. You'd say, okay, that was a wrong note. Let's try again. But we don't treat pornography addiction the same way we treat learning an instrument. We treat it as this moral absolute where any slip is total failure. And that framework guarantees you'll stay stuck. Because the pressure of perfection creates the conditions for relapse. So the second practice is this. When you slip, not if, when, treat it like data, not like damnation. Ask yourself, what were the conditions? What was I feeling? What time was it? What had happened in the hours before? Don't judge. Don't spiral. Just observe, because that information is gold. That information tells you where your system needs adjustment. Maybe you notice you always struggle on Sunday nights. Okay, that's data. What's happening Sunday nights? Are you dreading the work week? Are you isolated? Are you bored? Now you can design something specific for Sunday nights. Not try harder. Something concrete. Call a friend. Go to a coffee shop. Start a project you're excited about. You're not trying to become a perfect person. You're trying to become a skilled architect of your own life. Now let's talk about replacement, because this is where most people get stuck. You've heard the advice, just replace pornography with something healthy. Exercise, read books, take up a hobby. And you try, and it doesn't work, and you feel like even more of a failure because apparently you can't even successfully replace one habit with another. But here's what that advice misses. You can't replace an addictive behavior with a boring one. I know everyone wants exercise to be this magical cure-all, and exercise is great, truly. But if you're in the grip of pornography addiction and you're feeling anxious and lonely and desperate for relief, going for a jog isn't going to cut it. It's not intense enough. It's not immediate enough. It doesn't provide the same kind of escape. This is the law of replacement energy, and it's crucial. The thing you replace pornography with has to meet the same need. It has to be at least as satisfying. Or you'll just go back to pornography because pornography works. So you need to get brutally honest about what need pornography is meeting for you. And I mean the real need, not the sanitized version you'd tell a therapist. Is it boredom? Then you need something genuinely engaging, not something you think you should find engaging, something that actually captures your attention completely, that hours pass without noticing. For some people, that's video games. For some, it's building things. For some, it's getting lost in research about topics they care about. But it has to be real. It has to actually work. Is it loneliness? Then you need real human connection. And I know that's terrifying. I know it's easier to watch pornography than to risk real vulnerability with real people, but this is non-negotiable. If the root need is connection, no amount of exercise or hobbies will fix it. You have to find people, even just one person, even just texting an old friend you haven't talked to in a while. Is it anxiety? Then you need real tools for managing anxiety. Maybe that's therapy. Maybe that's meditation, though I know you've probably heard that 1,000 times. Maybe it's medication. Maybe it's just learning to recognize when your nervous system is dysregulated and having go